Hello, everyone. It's Bev here from my YouTube channel, Bev Thorogood Coaching. I'm really a little bit nervous about this one because I've not done a solo live stream onto YouTube. I've always had a guest, and I haven't done that many. So bear with me. If you join me, if you jump in live, say hello. There's something really bizarrely weird about talking into a camera with nobody else around. So I thought I'm going to face a fear that I've had for a little while around doing a solo live stream. So I'm here. So let me tell you what I want to talk about. So the theme for it really is about my access to work application to get some help with my ADHD for my business. And I just thought I'd share with you the experience that I've had. I'm by no means an expert on the access to work process. In fact, if anything, I'm the exact opposite. I've found the whole process quite challenging. And if you've got any help or support to offer, do let me know in the comments, because actually I found this process quite difficult. So before I get going, I thought for anybody who doesn't know who I am, who might fall upon this and watch it again at a later date, I'll give you a little bit of context about me and my life. It's not, well, I guess it is the Bev Show. I was going to say it's not the Bev Show, but I guess it probably is. But just, it's not going to be a deep dive into my, long life history, but just a bit of an overview, really. So I am now a business coach and a mentor, and I work specifically with women in wellness or well-being who have got a coaching business or want to have a coaching business or a training business around well-being, and they want to take it into the corporate market. And I got into this about a year and a bit ago, after spending the 5 and a bit years before that running my own business as a corporate trainer, training people about menopause in the workplace. And the reason I got into that, which I didn't do until I was 52, so I didn't start my own business until I was 52, I'm now 58, going on 59, was because, having spent a very long time working for the MOD in the UK, the Ministry of Defence, predominantly working for the Royal Air Force as a civilian, 32 years I worked there, and I struggled so much with my own menopause. For 2 years, really struggled. And I ended up resigning from my job in 2018 and found myself unemployed, with some skills around teaching, training, obviously 32 years of experience just of working. And long story short, I ended up starting to do some training initially for the Royal Air Force, and since then with lots and lots of other companies, around menopause and the impact it can have on working people. So I was going into corporate and basically delivering training and workshops and programs. But I switched a year and a bit ago. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I didn't find out I had ADHD until I had my formal diagnosis in January 2023. So what's that, about 18 months ago coming up, maybe? I had no idea I had ADHD. I knew there was lots of things I'd always struggled with, like time management and planning and organization and staying tidy and starting stuff but not finishing it. I can see somebody watching. If you're watching, do say hello, because this is quite a thrill. One person watching a live stream makes me feel even more excited. So I had all of the struggles, but didn't have a name for them, didn't know it was ADHD. Then I had my diagnosis, as I say, 18 months ago. And I was told when I got my diagnosis that I could apply for some help from the UK government through a scheme called Access to Work, which I was familiar with because when I was working for the MOD, I had a couple of my team members had asked if I could help them go through the Access to Work process. So I was familiar with what it was. I kind of was familiar with how you applied, but not as an individual with a business. It was quite easy, the process, if I remember rightly, when we did it through the MOD. But to be honest, I'd never actually. I'm not great at asking for help. I don't know about anybody else. I find it really difficult to ask for help. And asking for help from the government just feels, I don't know, it sounds really silly, but I know ADHD is classed as a disability, but I don't feel disabled. Sometimes I definitely find some things hard, but I don't feel disabled. And it felt like I was taking it by applying for support. It felt like I was taking stuff that I didn't really have a right or an entitlement to. And it wasn't until probably a year and maybe a year ago that I was having a conversation with somebody else who had gone down the access to work route. She was a middle-aged woman just like me, late diagnosis, ADHD, starting her own business. She was actually quite at the early stages of starting her business. And she said something that made me think about it differently. Um, she said, what access to work does and the support that they give you is about leveling the playing field. So the things that I struggle with because of my ADHD, there's a cost, an additional cost to managing those things in my business because I have to bring in external support. And I know everybody kind of, it's advisable if you've got your own business to bring on other people to help you with the tasks. But I kind of struggle with some of the basic stuff that most people who are neurotypical probably wouldn't struggle with. Um, and it's really, I'm still finding it quite hard to express what those challenges are without feeling like they sound a bit pathetic, because the whole thing with ADHD is we find some of the basic stuff that neurotypical people wouldn't even, question. We can find it really quite challenging. Um, but the underlying message behind that is, God, I sound so pathetic by saying that I struggle to um, plan my week, that I struggle to organize tasks, that I have a problem with forward planning, that I, will miss really important um, appointments and deadlines. And I mean, it just, there's a lot of things that are really challenging, even just things like getting my accounts done, bringing my accounts up to date. It's such a challenge to do that, even knowing that the consequences of not doing it are high from a financial point of view. So getting things ready for my tax return and that sort of thing is quite challenging. So long story short, this lady that I was chatting to said, all it does is level the playing field. You're not getting something that is kind of more than somebody else would get. It just means that you're running your business from like a level, you're on a level with other people at the start that haven't got ADHD. I'm not articulating this very well. So I ummed and ahed, and then realized that actually I do pay somebody quite a big chunk every month to keep me accountable. Really that's her main role, is just to manage me. And that in itself is a challenge. I pay an awful lot of money for software and things to help me manage my time. What I really probably need are good strategies from a coach that could help me. Anyway, so let's talk about the access to work process, because that's what I wanted this live to be about. So let's accept that I've kind of got over myself and decided actually some help would make a big difference. I'm fairly certain my business would be further on. I've been relatively successful without any support, but I think I could be much more successful with support. So I applied actually for access to work just before Christmas, literally about the 23rd of December. And I'm not great at form filling. Anything that I think is going to need a lot of detail or a lot of coordination, lots of kind of bringing bits of information together, especially if part of that is numerical data. I really panic and I struggle, but I kind of forced myself to open up the Access to Work application form and work through it online. I gave myself a good couple of hours to do it, and I basically went through the process. It was just an online form. I can't even remember what sort of things I had to put in there. What I had been told was ask for the moon, and you might get you might reach the sky. So I did ask for an awful lot. I didn't expect to get any of it, to be honest. I think I asked for virtual assistant support to help with admin. I asked for coaching to help me with my ADHD symptoms. I don't even like using the word symptoms, my ADHD traits. So things like helping to teach me strategies to manage my time better. I asked for some hardware to speed up the process of things like editing, because I part of the problem with something taking a long time is I can get very distracted, lose focus, think I've done something and then realize I haven't, and then get incredibly stressed when I realize that I've got to catch up and play catch up last minute. So I asked for quite a lot of stuff, if I'm honest. As I say, not expecting to get anywhere near that much. But everybody I spoke to said, look, ask for it. Don't expect to get it. But if you ask for hardly anything, you probably won't get that either. So I got the confirmation back from Access to Work that the application had gone through and that they'd received it, and that somebody would be in touch to do a workplace assessment for me within 12 weeks. So 12 weeks really took me into March, and March came and went. No assessment date, no contact whatsoever. I had that a very initial email almost minutes after I hit submit on the application. Bear with me, I need a slurp. So March came and went, nothing. April came and went, nothing. May came and went, still nothing. June arrived, and I was at the point of, should I give them a call? The problem is I wasn't sure quite who to call. It wasn't very clear who I needed to contact to sort of chase things up. And then again, I don't know if it's an authority thing or just the fear that they're going to ask me things I don't know, but I find it really difficult to pick up the phone and have those sorts of conversations. I'm not shy. I don't have any trouble talking to people. I don't have any trouble picking up the phone and having, sales calls now. I haven't always been like that, but I don't now. But the idea of ringing up, I think it's a bureaucracy that challenges me a bit. But anyway, I was at the point of trying to figure out who it is I needed to talk to. Hi, Chantel. Thank you so much. I did it. I found the courage to come on here and just talk. So this might not be relevant to you, but hopefully you'll get something from it. Maybe you'll glean something. But absolutely brilliant to have you watching. If anybody is watching and doesn't know, Chantel she's like the live stream queen. And I was asking her the other day on a call, how, what do I do? What's the best thing to do? She said, just go for it and do it. So I'm doing it, true to my word. So anyway, yes, so in June, I was still waiting to get some sort of response from Access to Work, and I was at the point of trying to find out who to contact. And I got, just as I was going on holiday, about 2 days before I was due to go on holiday, I got an email from Access to Work asking me to call them with a telephone number. So I gave them a ring, and a very nice man said, yes, we've had your application. Sorry for the delay. We're very, very busy. What I need to do now is arrange a workplace assessment. I think that's like a third party organization that does the assessment. But I needed to they wanted quite a bit of information from me before they could do that. They wanted my corporation, tax return, so my business tax return. They wanted my self-assessment tax return. Chantal, obviously, you're across there in, Australia. That basically means my business, tax details and my personal tax details. So I had to gather all of that together, and send it through. And they arranged the assessment for just when I got back from holiday. So I had the assessment probably a week and a half ago. It was just on Teams, Microsoft Teams, so nobody actually came and assessed my workstation, in person. But we had about 45 minutes where I talked to the assessor, and I kind of lost it a little bit. I had a bit of a meltdown, and I think it was because actually talking about the challenges that I have, I got really emotional about it. Um, but she was very kind, she was very understanding, and we kind of talked about some of the challenges I had. Um, it did feel a little bit strange though at times because she was asking me questions, and I get that they have to kind of look at the disability as a whole or the condition as a whole. But she seemed to be fixated on the fact that I had dyslexia. And I don't have dyslexia. I was actually part of my job in the MOD for a long time was as their dyslexia tester. So I was their dyslexia specialist doing adult screening tests for military and civilian personnel. And I know very well that I don't have dyslexia, although ADHD and dyslexia are quite often comorbid. But I don't have dyslexia. And she was asking me, do I struggle when I'm reading? Do I struggle to comprehend what I'm reading? And most of the time I don't, but if it's particularly boring or particularly complex, then sometimes I have to read a paragraph maybe 3 or 4 times to kind of understand that paragraph. But I don't know. Let me know, Chantal. Is that I don't know if you have ADHD, but isn't that just something that most people have an issue with? If something's really, really complicated or complex, then sometimes you have to read it a few times to fully understand it. So to me, that's not in itself an indicator of dyslexia. She also asked me what my spelling was like, what my sentence structure was like. Did I find it difficult to write? Well, actually, I've written a book, self-published and self-edited a book. I would say probably one of my strengths is the written word. So my spelling is very good, and yeah, I think most people do, Chantal. If it's complicated, you're gonna have to read it a few times. But she seemed to fixate on this because I'd said yes, I had to reread things sometimes, a number of times. But she seemed to disregard completely the fact that I said, "But I know I don't have dyslexia. I was a specialist in this area. I've tested other people for a long time, and I know that I don't have any of the signs of dyslexia." The reason I'm hammering on about this will become apparent when I tell you about what they've actually offered me in terms of support. So we also talked about other things that would help, for example, an accountability partner, because one of the biggest challenges that I have as an ADHDer is following through on tasks, remembering to do the thing, and also planning it out. So I currently have Claire who works with me, and her sole role really is to keep me on track. I always joke that she has 3 tasks and that's it. On a Monday, I tell her what I'm going to do. On a Wednesday, she checks up to see if I've done it, and on a Friday, she bollocks me if I haven't. And I sort of joke about the fact that that's her job. She does a hell of a lot more than that in the business, to be fair. But I need that accountability. I also have a VA, a beautiful lady in the Philippines, who does a lot of the routine stuff, because one of the biggest problems with ADHD is we have very much an interest driven brain. So, in order to really get things done, we have to have interest there, or a very tight deadline and very high consequences. So, she does an awful lot of the kind of the routine stuff that I would probably let slip. I'm going to have another slurp. So, I asked about the possibility of having either an accountability partner or somebody who I could get funding for to do what Claire does, so it would free up Claire to do other things. Um, I think what I gathered from Access to Work is they won't give you any support for things that are normal, everyday, routine business functions. So they won't pay for a VA to do your admin because admin is a normal business function, and that's absolutely fine. Although I think as a one-person business, it is one of the areas that I struggle with. So without getting that support means I don't have a level playing field. I don't know. So I asked about coaching. I asked about an accountability partner. I asked for some software and some hardware. I asked for a Remarkable, which, if you're not aware, a Remarkable is a bit like a tablet. It's like a Kindle for writing, and apparently they're very, very good because one of the benefits of a Remarkable for somebody with an ADHD brain is all they do is note taking. It's not like a full blown iPad where you've got notifications and shiny objects going off all the time where you'd get distracted. It's purely a note taker. I One area that I really do struggle with is I cannot listen to somebody and take notes at the same time. Chantal, I'd love to know, can you do that? Can you be listening to somebody and making notes and be able to do both? I can't do it. My colleague Claire is brilliant. She'll be listening and she'll be writing loads of notes and they'll be dead clear and easy to understand. I just can't do it. So with the idea with the Remarkable, is that, well, there's a number of reasons really. I don't know, you won't be able to see behind me because it's a bit dark. Maybe if I move there. A lot of those books on that middle shelf are notebooks, and I counted them up once, and I have about 48 different notebooks. Most of them have only got half a dozen pages or so written on, and I have them all over the place, and I never know what's in any of them. So the idea with the Remarkable was that maybe I could just have this one place where I keep all of my notes, and it wouldn't have the distractions that my iPad has, because I have got an iPad. I don't find it particularly nice to write on with the Apple Pen. So I tend not to use it for notes. So that's what I asked for. And about a week after I had my assessment, I got notification from my case worker, who was the guy who originally called me. And he said, well, in the email, he said, we've had your assessment back and we're happy to fund some support for you. So I thought, well, that's great. So I had to look at the support that they were agreeing to, and it's just bizarre. They've agreed to fund some software that's like an auto captioning software. So if you're on a meeting on Teams or on Zoom or anything like that, it automatically like captions the meeting and takes notes for you. And this bit of software, I can't remember what it's called. I should probably have it in front of me. It's something like £2,400. I don't know what that is in Australian dollars, but just under 2.5 grand for this software for note taking. But actually, most software does that anyway. If you go onto Zoom, you've got note taking apps that will, transcribe the note meetings. So whilst I kind of did say I struggle to take notes, I certainly don't need £2,500 worth of software. There are other things out there that are a hell of a lot cheaper that I can use, and I do use. I'm just checking on the comments there. I can write a lot of notes while listening. I'm so envious because I can't do it. Yeah, I mean, if the meeting allows you to kind of have the notes running in the background, it's great. But I'm guessing even with this software that they've offered to pay for me, um, I've still got to ask permission to have that running in the background. So I think it would be a brilliant bit of software if you were a student and you were in lectures and you were wanting to, have those notes taken. But it just doesn't seem to fit in any way with the challenges that I was sharing. They've also offered to pay for Grammarly for me. Um, but Grammarly, it's a great tool. I don't use it because actually, as I said earlier, I don't feel I have a need really with my written work to need Grammarly running in the background. Nice to have, but I don't need it funding. They also offered text to speech software for me so that didn't have to read things that were complicated. Now, I get that these are all helpful, um, but it's almost like she picked up on this. Um, yeah, you're right, Chantal. That's the feeling I get. It's like she didn't. It almost like she had a list of support that she was able to give, and she was fitting that into me as opposed to listening to what I needed. So the very thing that I really did need was the accountability and the coaching. So they've given me they won't pay for an accountability partner, even though the amount that they gave or that they sort of set aside for an accountability partner is was £480. They'll pay for software for 2,500 that I don't need, and then add on, I think Grammarly's something like 180 or something, and then this text to speech is about another 400 a year. But they won't give me an accountability partner for £480. It just doesn't make sense to me. I can see somebody else watching. I'm very thrilled to have that number two. I can't imagine, Chantal, what it feels like to have like another couple of O's on there, or even another couple of thousand, and have 200 or 2,000 people watching you live. That must be amazing. I'd love to know, actually, Chantal, how many do you normally have watching you when you go live? Because one of the best bits about this is actually you don't know how many people are there, so it doesn't really matter if you're talking to one or a million, I guess. Um, so they wouldn't fund the accountability partner, and they've offered me 18 hours of ADHD coaching, but they will only give me £1,400 for those 18 hours. And I think I worked out that that's something like £70, 70, £75 an hour for a coach. Now, I am a coach and I've paid for coaching before. And I have to be honest, £75 an hour doesn't buy you a particularly great coach, in my experience. And the reason I say that is because I think coaching is one of those um, occupations where your pricing doesn't just reflect your ability, but it also reflects your confidence to ask a higher price. Depends on the usually around 50-ish, but 500 to 600 for a channel I run. Ah, that must be brilliant. That's my goal. I'm going to get that 2 watchers up to a higher number. So I've forgotten totally where I was with this. What was I talking about? Yes, coaching costs. So my coaching, I charge £150 an hour for my coaching. Although that doesn't really wash because I don't sell individual coaching sessions. But if I occasionally do a one-off, it's normally 150. So £75 an hour is quite low. And they gave 3 quotes. So they gave a low, a medium, and a higher one. And even the high one was only about 2,400 for these 18 sessions. But they've given me the lowest amount of money for coaching. So I feel, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel that I'm going to have to go with a coach who doesn't value their own worth. Maybe that's me being a bit disingenuous, but my experience of coaching and working with coaches is that if you don't value yourself, you don't tend to charge much for what you do. And if you don't value yourself, is it because you have a lack of confidence in your ability to just help and support? So I don't know. Maybe what I need to do now is go back to my caseworker and say to him, look, I don't feel like the support being offered fully meets the needs that I have. I feel like I'm being offered quite high value support that I don't need. And the support I do need either hasn't been approved, or they've given me such a small amount that actually it's probably not going to help that much. whether I'm able to, instead of having 18 one-hour sessions, I have 9 at £75, I have 9 sessions at £150 with a coach that is, charging what coaching should be charged at. I don't know, that maybe that sounds a bit churlish. So that was it really. So I've just realized that I've now been talking for 30 minutes. That goes really, really quickly. And Chantel, if you're still there with me, I'm so, so grateful to you for sticking around and joining me on my very first solo live. I'm sure they will get better. But having said that, the tech didn't fail. Um, Hopefully you can hear me. So my microphone's working. And that was my biggest concern, was that the tech would let me down, and apparently it hasn't. So I think for anybody that's watching this that might come across it and maybe gets all the way through it, who knows? Um, I would really love some support and some help on this really, because if you've gone through the access to work process and you have ADHD, I'd love to know how you found the process. Did you find it frustrating? I found it very frustrating, most of which because it took so long to get any support, or even to just get any confirmation and kind of anything happening. But I definitely found the whole sort of assessment and feedback from that really frustrating, because I feel like, exactly as you've just said, Chantel, I feel like I wasn't listened to. And now I feel like I've got to justify myself or challenge that assessment. And it doesn't help that the lady was really lovely, and I don't want her to to get into trouble. But I do feel like I don't feel much like I'm very much further forward, coupled with the fact that in order to claim for any of the support that they've given me, they did offer to fund a Remarkable, I'm very happy to say, and 3 years of the software that goes with the Remarkable. So I'm very pleased with that. But actually the process, like any government process, I know because I worked for the civil service, I worked for the government for a very long time. So I know that there's always hoops to jump through. But the process for claiming looks really complicated. Again, a whole load of forms. And my ADHD does mean that I find it really difficult to do those forms. I have to almost like, oh, I don't know, like build myself up to it. So I'm going to get Claire, the lady that I was talking about before, my accountability buddy, my business guru that works with me. I'm going to get her to go through the forms with me and get the support. It's the weirdest thing, because you'd think, having the challenges that I have, you'd think, how the hell does that woman run a business? But the flip side of all the challenges that come with ADHD are actually some real strengths. Um, and I feel as if with the right support in place, to manage the weak areas, the strengths that I have in my business will flourish. So fingers crossed, we'll watch this space. So I'm going to leave it there. N- Really happy with that for my first ever solo one. So um, there are some superpowers that go with it. I always worry about calling them superpowers, to be honest, Chantal, because I know that some people with ADHD struggle way, 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 way more than I do. And they'd probably, they wouldn't recognize them as superpowers. And it's easy really to focus on all of the bits that we find challenging and not really recognize the bits that make life, yeah, just make business and life easier. Like, for example, some of the strengths are I'm very good at um, managing lots of things. I have a chaotic brain. So whenever there's chaos, I'm quite comfortable in chaos. I love change. Some people really don't like change. I'm very comfortable with change. I'm very comfortable with learning new stuff, because I find that novelty is really helpful. It kind of triggers my interest. I have to manage a little bit, but I'm very happy to go and try things that other people might be afraid to try. I'm not particularly risk averse in that respect, and so we have this impulsive. Um, we're happy with risk. I shouldn't say we, 'cause like we're all the same, but the way my ADHD shows up, it means that that impulsivity means I get stuff started and done. I take an idea from idea to actual action very, very quickly. So there are lots and lots of benefits. It's just some of the stress that comes with the weaker areas, and that was what I was hoping access to work might have been able to help me with. We'll see. I will maybe come back on and do another live when I've gone through the process of actually applying for some of the support that they've given me. And it could be, to be honest, that I haven't read it well enough and detail isn't one of my strong points. Maybe I need to go back with Claire with me, go through the detail, and maybe it isn't quite as off the mark as I think it is, but we will have to see. So there you go, guys. I'm going to love you and leave you. We've still got 2 people there. Haven't got the other 2 zeros on the end of that yet, but hey, who knows? One day maybe. Chantel, thank you so much for sticking around. So appreciate you for that. And whoever else is watching you've not jumped into the chat, I don't think. Haven't seen anybody else, but thanks again if you're there watching me, and I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.